Module 15. Preparing for resistance. In this module, we will look at preparing for resistance and the psychological contract. Cantor's common causes of resistance, strategies for managing resistance, and the importance of support. One key to understanding why people resist change is to view the world of work through the psychological contract. The Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, CIPD, defines the psychological contract as the perceptions of the two parties, employee and employer, on what their mutual obligations are towards each other. Organizations which have positive psychological contracts with their staff are rewarded with high levels of employee commitment. This normally translates into a positive impact on performance. If this psychological contract is broken, the results can be a negative impact on job satisfaction, commitment, engagement, and therefore performance. It is very important to consider the psychological contract when planning for a change initiative, as alterations to current ways of working can threaten a positive psychological contract. The resulting loss of commitment and engagement may not only mean the change fails to realize its benefits, but the impacts might be felt a lot wider across the organization and for a long time into the future. There are various things you can do to help mitigate the threat to the psychological contract during your change. Communicate openly and honestly about the change as early as possible. Build in lots of opportunities for employees to feedback and become involved. Be realistic about the impacts of the change, don't oversell the benefits, and be honest about disbenefits. Changes that may involve redundancies need extra care and planning. Involve HR very early on and take their advice on how to communicate and handle staff issues. If the organization has a staff consultation group or is unionized, make sure you talk to everyone you need to and keep them involved from a very early stage. Cantor lists 10 common causes for resistance during change initiatives, and gives some tips for leaders of change on how to deal with them, as shown here. Loss of control over territory. Dealt with by leaving room for those affected by change to make choices and get involved with planning and taking ownership. Excessive uncertainty during the change. Dealt with by creating a sense of safety with the certainty of process, clear simple steps and timetables. Change is sprung on people as a surprise. Dealt with by not planning changes in secret. Keep people informed of what is happening. Too many differences at once. Dealt with by minimizing the number of unrelated differences, where possible keeping things familiar and avoiding change for change's sake. Loss of face from those associated with current state. Dealt with by celebrating the elements of the past that are worth honoring. In addition to the common causes of resistance listed above, each change initiative is different, and it is important to identify which specific aspects of your change people may be unhappy with and therefore resist. Chapter 2, Section B 2.2 in your handbook describes Lewin's force field analysis. This is a good tool to use in workshops with affected users to build up a picture of possible areas of resistance. Cantor's common causes of resistance continued. Concerns about competence. Dealt with by providing abundant information, education, mentors and support systems and running systems in parallel during transition if possible. Change is more work. Dealt with by allowing some people to focus exclusively on the change, and by rewarding and recognizing participants. Ripple effects. Change interferes with the activities of other areas. Dealt with by enlarging the circle of stakeholders and by considering all affected parties and making efforts to work with them to minimize disruption. Past resentments surface due to the interruption of a steady state. Dealt with by considering gestures to heal the past before focusing on the future. Sometimes the threat is real, change is resisted because it can hurt. Dealt with by being honest, transparent, fast and fair. For example, one big layoff with lots of support is better than a series of smaller cuts. There are several recognized types of resistance and symptoms for recognizing them. Audible unhappiness. Symptoms. For example, lots of one-way communication of unhappiness with change. Be careful of. These audible expressions can infect others and dominate meetings, which can be unsettling for managers. Deal with it by one-to-one engagement. Identify personal benefits for individuals, get feedback, and work with people to find solutions. Disengagement. Symptoms. For example, lack of attendance at change meetings, lack of participation, or unquestioning agreement. Be careful of. This can be easy to miss in early stages, and disengaged managers can negatively affect their teams, creating missed opportunities for people to have input in change plans. Deal with it by identifying the causes, take the change to them and involve them to increase engagement. Sabotage. Symptoms. For example, people bringing their own agendas. They might try to break systems and processes. They could spread negative rumors about change. Be careful of. The subversive nature of sabotage makes it hard to identify the source. New systems and processes can be easily broken if the will is there. Deal with it by identifying the saboteurs and ensure they know you have. Give people responsibilities for aspects of the change to get their buy-in and accountability. Building a strategy to manage resistance. Tables 7.5 and 7.6 on pages 313 and 316 of your handbook give some ideas about how to build a strategy to manage resistance. In addition, Cotter and Schlesinger suggest these two considerations whilst building your strategy. 1. Analyze the following 4 situational factors. The amount and kind of resistance that is anticipated. How powerful the initiator of the change is in relation to the resistors. Who the people are who have the relevant data to design the change and the energy to implement it. How great the risks are to organizational performance and survival if the change isn't made. 2. Determine the optimal speed of change. The above analysis will help to decide how quickly or slowly the change should proceed. In general, it is recommended to proceed at a slower pace as this gives time to reduce resistance and ensure all relevant stakeholders are involved in designing and implementing the change. However, if the current risk to organizational performance and survival is very great, it will be necessary to implement the change more quickly, which will involve less buy-in and focus on forcing the change through. Supporting managers and supervisors. It is essential to ensure that managers and supervisors feel supported. Managers and supervisors play a crucial role in successful change. They translate policy into action. They can really influence the change. Potential tensions between implementing change, dealing with resistance, and maintaining performance. Support them by communicating as much as you can. Helping them to answer questions about the change. Facilitating access to coaching or mentoring. Managers and supervisors who are struggling with the change may also benefit from some informal coaching or mentoring. Chapter 9, section in your handbook describes coaching. This can help you to support your managers and supervisors to deal with challenges brought about by the change. Building and sustaining momentum. Build momentum through regular communications. Engagement with stakeholders. An active change management network. If the change has a long lead time for implementation, don't try to build momentum too early. There are 4 key strategies. Timing of communications. Increasing the frequency of communications will help build momentum as users hear more about the change as implementation approaches. Chapter 5 explains more about the type and frequency of communications during a change. Phased approach to implementation. If the nature of your change allows, carry out a pilot or early tranche before rolling out to all users. This gives the opportunity of testing solutions and approaches to the rollout, as well as gathering case studies and good news stories from early adopters. This will increase the interest of users who are waiting to go live as they hear how their colleagues are getting on. Chapter 8, Section D1 of your handbook, discusses this further. Keep visibility of the change high. When the change starts, especially if you have built up momentum, it may be the top of everyone's priority list. However, if it is a long rollout, or if an extended period of embedding is needed, other things will begin to take people's attention and your change may slip down in people's priorities. In order to keep people focused on the change, keep the levels of communications and good news stories high. Publish hard data updates, for example, 300 more people have gone live with the change this month. Task managers with the responsibility for delivery. Build successful implementation for their areas into their targets, objectives or reporting. Remember, if it isn't measured, it doesn't get done. Take a while to think about the following. For a change initiative you are familiar with, what forms of resistance were encountered? How was this resistance managed? End of final module. In this final module, we have looked at reasons for change resistance and its psychology, causes of resistance and management strategies for dealing with resistance. We have looked at types of resistance and the importance of supporting managers and supervisors through change resistance.